You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
Happy Sunday morning, everybody. I'm Scott Couch. For the next half hour, we are talking politics. 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans commenting on the issues of the day, for lack of a better word. I've got a really great panel here. Let me introduce my guests. Jasper Hendricks, Democratic strategist, current chair of the Metro Fair Board. Steve Gill, attorney, conservative television and radio host on both sides of the pond. This guy's on radio and TV. Emily Cupples, former communications director for the Tennessee Democratic Party and founder of a new company called Delta Public Strategies. If you need help, she can help you. That's right, call. Scottie Hughes back with us for the first time in a long time. Delighted to see you. Journalist, GOP commentator, and we go to church together. That's it all plays in. Guys, let's wade into our first topic, and that's one that's really making news across the country, but there's a Nashville connection. Normally we don't comment a whole lot on presidential politics and that nature of things because there's so many shows for that, but Todd and Julie Chrisley are back in Nashville right now. We tape on Friday for the interest of disclosure. They spoke publicly to our people and others for the first time at one of the hotels downtown after being released after receiving a federal pardon. The question is, should President Trump have pardoned these reality TV stars? New York Times story shows pardons, not only this one, but going to relatives of big donors and famous people and things of that nature. And the question is, Scottie, you haven't been on in a while, so I'll give you the first bite.
I get the hot seat on this one.
The appearance of impropriety is that I'm showing favor to people who gave me money or big stars.
Well, traditionally, Republicans right now are saying, listen, this is what Joe Biden did. He set the precedent for this. But he said it as he was going out of office. True. We've only been 125 days into office, and President Trump is already starting this. I think what he's done is he's done himself a disservice. This is now going to be Pandora's box he's opened. But in this particular case with the Chrisleys, I have to remind people that when the first conviction came down in 2019 when President Trump was in office, and then this was not on his radar then, but supposedly they felt like they were being targeted because they were conservatives, they were being targeted because they were Republicans. I think that is probably a false statement. This was Savannah Chrisley became heavily involved in President Trump's election in 2024, but prior to that, they were never really involved. In fact, they did everything to distance themselves. So I think in this case, this was probably not, if you're going to commit a white-collar crime, my best advice right now, go become friends with a celebrity, because that's going to be the best way to get you a pardon in the next 4 years.
What are the Democrats saying about this? Because they're talking about it nationally on all the talk shows, plus they're talking about it locally because they live in Belmead.
Yeah, absolutely. Scottie and I are on the same side of the table, and we're on the same side on this issue. When, as Scottie said, Joe Biden did pardon his son his last day in office while he was coming out. At the beginning of his term, Joe Biden actually pardoned thousands. I mean, I think it was over 5,000 by the time you combine it all, non-violent criminal offenders who had done house arrest during COVID, right? And so he actually came and said, let's clear the criminal justice system for actually violent offenders. And he did not do white-collar crimes. He didn't focus on the rich and the wealthy. And so I think what this shows us is President Trump's priorities, and I think you'll also see that in his budget. He's worried about the rich and the wealthy. He's not worried about, less fortunate people.
I suspect you've probably talked about this on some other platforms across the globe. Everybody's watching.
Yeah, and I'll admit, I've never seen this particular reality show. I didn't really know anything about him until all this, came about. President Trump also did pardon a black rap star this week also. So it's not just rich white folks.
And a gang member from Chicago.
Yeah, so there's a lot of others. And he does apparently sign the pardons himself rather than auto pen in the basement. So that's a distinction from
he does have
the
a
Biden
beautiful signature, you've got to admit.
I did look at the case though, and I think this was overreach of prosecution and the judgment, how many years. They were not prosecuted or they were not convicted of tax evasion. They didn't owe any money when the IRS was finished. There was too much communication ex parte, which means out of bounds, between the prosecutor and the judge during the trial. Some of the prosecutors have been admitted on tape that they lied in the trial. So I think there were some aspects of the case that questioned the legality of it that may have motivated Trump more than their celebrity.
Scott, I know, Jasper, you're going to say something, Jasper. I'm going to disagree with you probably for the first time in my life, because here's the deal. $30 million were defrauded by community banks. These are people people that Trump elected go to these banks for small business loans, and $30 million was defrauded by him, and then he declared bankruptcy was how he got out of it.
That was the fraud, but it was not tax evasion because they didn't owe taxes, and that's what the media has been reporting, tax evasion.
But it was also that $30 million. And I'll give this back over to you, Jasper, from that point.
And you're right about this, but I also want people to take a look at, what's happening right now. So yes, he's pardoning people for certain things, and the gangster that you mentioned, he still has state charges, so he's not going to see the light of day. It was just a move that he's making to try to appease African Americans, say, hey, look, I'm your friend. I believe, I want to bring black families back together. That's the play that he's going to try to do in the African American community with some of these pardons. But people still will not have the right to vote. They will still not have the right to live in certain places, and they will not have the right to work in certain places. So he can issue the pardons, but if we're not working on true criminal justice reform and working on re-entry, what good is it for these people that he's actually pardoning? Because they're going to continue a life of crime because they're not full citizens. And so I think that it's where we're being short-sighted here by just saying, oh well, he has his pardon and now they can go shop at Nordstrom's, which he was on Friday, but he still can't vote. He still can't register to vote here in Tennessee.
I've got to get a break in right here, guys.
Didn't they just give Kim?
We're going to continue the conversation with immigration and the mayor and the congressman and the senator. That's next.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
You thought the last one was saucy. We're going into immigration right now. Nashville's mayor having made statements that essentially are offering comfort or at least sympathy to illegal immigrants, perhaps having policies that get in the way of the ICE efforts. And now the mayor is up against the GOP establishment. Congressman Andy Ogles hosted a Memorial Day news conference. Since then, he has said there are 2 confirmed investigations of the mayor and whether he's done anything actionable. Jasper, you got the last bite. Last time you get the first bite this time. Your thoughts on this circus?
I think that Ogles needs to be worried about his own investigations, and the things that he has going on in his life. And I think that's what he's trying to do. That's the only thing that he's trying to do is distract from that, and by using, this immigration crisis as a tool. So he has not put forth any legislation to fix the issue. He's just going to attack people, and the mayor, everyone is saying, like, we're not against, going after criminals, but that is not what is happening in every case. And so people still need due process. That's all he's saying. You need due process, and let but if you have an issue with it, the congressman is in Washington. He's a representative in Washington. Where's his legislation to fix the issue, to address the issue?
Now, one thing, and I should have mentioned this on the setup, the city does have a website where the mayor has an executive order where within 24 hours, if you as a Metro employee have had interaction with ICE, you report it to us, we put it on the website. And there were some names of federal agents on there. After we did a story a couple of days ago, the city redacted those. And that seems to be an admission that we shouldn't have done that. And the feds and the congressman and the senators saying you did it on purpose.
I'm not sure, Jasper, what additional laws you want Andy Ogles to pass. It's illegal to be here. It's illegal to stay here. It's illegal to stay here and not register that
It's to create a pathway.
Wait. Let's look at how many laws they break. When they work illegally, when they use a social security
number. Go after the people that hire them.
Well, that's fine, too. But they are working illegally. They're using
because
social
they're
security numbers.
Because somebody's going to hire them.
But if they're using a
somebody's
social security
them.
number, that's called
Most
identity
people know
fraud.
That. The people know
that's
that.
Identity
but
fraud.
But the people who are
that's
hiring them know that. But the people who are hiring them know that.
In fact, you have Governor DeSantis has said today that with that big construction site, they're going after the employer. So you've got all these laws already, Jasper. All Andy's saying is let's enforce them and prosecute the people who are committing violent crimes.
And that's what the mayor is saying.
Everything else. No, the mayor's saying block them, keep them from
No, he's not. No, he's not. He is not saying that. That is not what he's saying at all.
That's what he's doing.
That is not what he's doing either.
He's doing videos proudly proclaiming that she's blocking
that is not the mayor, though.
Right,
that was not the mayor. We're talking about the mayor. We're talking about the mayor, though. This is about the mayor.
He is part of
that
what
is not
she
what
is
the mayor
doing.
is.
They're trying to intervene with the arrest of criminals, gang members, drug dealers.
This is about the mayor. The mayor has not done any of that.
Well, when he's doxing FBI agents, I'd say that's a problem.
I predict part of this conversation is going to wind up on the news. You wait this. Next bite.
The way that I look at it, and this may be the compromise between, I agree agree with what you're saying. The fact that President Trump did promise a big, beautiful door. You can be doing what Tom Homan is doing. At the same time, those in D.C. should be doing a way to make it easier for the immigration process to happen, to make it streamlined. You're not, right now we're just going after the criminals, which we should be.
did say that as well this week, that there should be an
easier
path.
There should be an easier path to citizenship. President Trump promised it in 2016, and he continued to reiterate it, that it's very difficult for those who want to be here legally. I do wish that there would have been, if you're in anywhere, Republicans are not going to get their attention noticed until their housing sites and their house gets shut down because no one's there to work. I think right now you are seeing a lot of, and my heart's break for some of these folks because they're in hiding. There are people that are in hiding right now, afraid that they're going to show up at church, at school, on the job site, and ICE is going to pull up and they're going to take them up. To Steve's point, they're here illegally, though. So, some of them have tried to get with the process, and they've been scammed by members of their own community. If you hear their stories, that's sad.
Expensive.
There should have been a better way, not just to, we're going to start this today, of going in and arresting people. I do wish there would have been a way to do a registry system first.
Let's get Emily in here before we run out of time in the
segment. So I have a few thoughts on this. I agree with Scottie. I mean, every administration, though, Democrats and Republicans have kicked the can for decades on immigration reform. We don't have enough judges. The system gets backlogged. It is so hard to become a citizen.
40 years of can kicking.
Yes, to become a citizen in this country. So naturally, we will have illegal people here illegally. I don't think they're illegal people. Joe Biden should have passed permanent protections, just as Donald Trump should have passed permanent protections for people that are already here, that are already working, that are law-abiding.
Obama and George Bush.
Yes, law-abiding citizens.
And Bill Clinton before.
You know, Andy Ogles is not popular, right? That's how someone raised a war chest against him in his most recent election, in his primary. Both sides have polled Republican and Democrats since the 2024 election. He is still not popular. This is an issue with rural voters, and so he's grandstanding on that. The mayor has done absolutely nothing wrong. If you want to say he put out something improperly on a website, how many times did we see that happen with Doge in the Trump administration? I mean, it just happens when you have large government and you have a bureaucracy. Mistakes will happen. They redacted it immediately. And from everything what I can tell, the mayor has cooperated. And actual violent criminals, if we believe in Metro Police Department, which I do, Metro Nashville Police Department, violent criminals will be apprehended that way.
Sure. Now, let's get a quick bite from the lawyer on the panel. Just from the outside looking in, I haven't seen anything that the mayor's done. You may find it distasteful. I'm not sure that it's illegal or actionable.
I think when you cross that line of encouraging people to interfere and impede, I think that was Afton Ben's own words.
You're talking about the mayor. We're talking about the mayor. We're talking about the mayor. We're talking about the mayor.
We're talking about the mayor. Who are impeding the enforcement of the law. Well,
this is about the mayor.
And if the mayor's encouraging it, he is breaking the law.
You keep saying if he's doing something.
Well, I think
nobody said he's done anything. But they're investigating the mayor.
They're investigating to see if his actions
I take it back. I may use something from that. I've got to squeeze in a break. You're watching Nashville in Focus, and we are on fire. Come back.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
On a related topic, Metro Council Immigrant Caucus members calling for the resignation of Republican Councilman David Benton, who appeared with Andy Ogles at the event on Memorial Day at the Capitol. They say that his comments make him unfit to serve. Some are calling for an effort to recall Benton if he does not resign. And you get the first bite at the apple this time.
You know, I think if I were advising Councilmember Benton personally, I would not have advised to do that to win favor with my party, essentially. But I also think on the other side of it, Democrats, when we have national lawmakers in town, we go stand with them for their press briefings. And so I don't necessarily think he's done anything wrong. However, I do agree with a recall process, and that, it is in the city charter and it's in the Constitution, and it exists for a reason. And if his constituents are that unhappy with him, they have the right to recall him.
I heard that they had the Democrats were sort of canvassing his district, trying to kind of stir up some doo-doo, if you would.
Yeah, they will. I think they need it's about 600 signatures of registered voters in order to get it on the start the recall process. But my question is, well, they didn't know that he was a Republican when they voted for him. You know, I mean, I'm kind of confused here. Like, so, you know, to ask him to resign.
Isn't partisan, is it?
Right, yeah, right. But they should have done their due diligence to, like, ask questions.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that, you know, I mean, to ask him to resign, I think is silly. You know, so if you want to remove him, just go after the recall process. Because he's not going to resign. This is how he felt.
He'll
you know, this is how he felt before, but you just didn't ask him.
Or just say, as you point out, it might not be a partisan race, but everybody knows if they're Republican. In this case, wins for Republicans. So if they go after him even for a recall, all you're going to do is kick the hornet's nest of Republicans.
But does he have Republicans that live in that district, though? I don't think that. I think
they obviously elected him.
No, because he was supported by some of the council members who thought that he was actually
a moderate.
Like what some.
This is still a moderate.
But the issue. But I think did you notice he was the only Davidson County person that stood up there? So we have other Davidson County GOP members.
Yeah.
We have other Davidson County Metro Council members who are Republicans,
who are true
Republicans, and they weren't there.
I don't think this is a good issue for Democrats to try to harp on too much. I think they should just. I really don't.
The call or the councilman aligning himself with the congressman?
I think, again, he's not aligning himself necessarily with Andy Ogles. He's aligning himself with let's enforce the law. And again, we keep hearing from Democrats, we agree with enforcing the law, just we want to tweak it here and let this person go. We don't want to do anything to gangbangers, but those that are helping them, assisting them, we don't mind if they do.
I don't even want to follow the law. Which means that every person deserves due process, number one.
Well, many of these that are being caught already have a deportation order, which means they've been through the process.
But y'all keep saying many, but nobody knows who they are. All we keep hearing the numbers
because we don't know who they are. That's
from a bunch of people, from a party that doesn't tell the truth.
The bad news is, truthfully, though, previous presidential administrations also denied millions or hundreds of thousands of people due process in the very same way.
When they have a deportation order, and they've identified that 40 of them had deportation
all be wrong, but they
others
did
had previous convictions. When they rounded up that first 200, 140, they identified what they had done.
We don't know who most of them are.
We don't know their name, but we know what they've done. 5 or 6 of them are, and the rest of them we don't even know.
Right, because there was no process. They were put on a plane. They were arrested. They were detained. They were put on. They were taken straight to Louisiana within an hour.
Who can't keep track of their own criminals.
So, you know,
you got a point there.
And then once they got there, they were put on a plane sent to somewhere.
But you know how
when you have a deportation order, you've had due process, they can take you to the border that minute. A deportation order, or if you've come back after a deportation order, that is immediate deportation.
But let's remember how this all started.
I've got to leave it there because I'm time constrained on the let's go to a break. Let's do that.
Yeah.
You're watching Fox 17 News, Nashville in Focus.
In our final segment, going to talk about a big tent issue. A state law, a bill just became law this past week when the governor signed it, ensuring 40 minutes of recess for elementary school kids across our state. Heretofore, there had been a 15-minute mandate. You will do at least that. My question is, and Steve, I'll start with you, is this an issue that the legislature should have waded into, or one that they should have better left to local school boards to determine what's best? They say you can't even take recess away as a punishment as a teacher anymore.
In the interest of honesty, when I was a kid, I would have wanted 40 minutes of instruction and 6 hours of recess. So yes. I would have wanted to balance it differently. Again, I think the local school districts, again, Republicans always preach, let's push it to the local government. They should be pushing this to the local government, not having the state legislature dictate to schools, school superintendents, and principals what they need to do.
Let me tell you, my big red flag on this is, and I feel like I need to show my GOP voting record. I'm still as strong as a conservative, but on this case, following the school choice bill, and I think the major mistake that many Republicans made in supporting it, why is this only for public schools? Why is this, once again, you're giving an edge to those elementary school kids that they're going to have more instruction time. Meanwhile, our public school kids go play kickball, which I think is important. But if it's so important, why not make it for all students, not just those in public schools?
Not just the ones who get $7,000 too.
They could have done that. Emily, your thoughts?
You know, I don't have a strong opinion on this one. I'm just glad to see they didn't take more books away or, take more funding away.
Well, that's already been done.
Or mandate what teachers wore to school or anything like that. So.
Jasper, you get the last bite.
You got to remember, this is the same group of people that brought you a third-grade retention bill that still needs to be fixed, and I've heard some of them read out loud or try. So, and this is these are the same people that has consistently messing up the Shelby County school district, but then blaming Shelby County. Every session, they come up with new ideas on what they think is best for children, and it's taking the kids in a backward-forward motion in a way that they're getting whiplash, and then they say, "Oh, well, you're not doing good on a test, on this one test." So you don't get the pass. But
and as of this time, I don't think the state has still released publicly the retention numbers of how bad our different schools.
Oh, they just released. They were just released on May 19th. They were released
about a week ago.
And in Robinson County, I think it was.
But not statewide.
Like 40%, only 40% of the kids passed. So that means 60% of the kids in that county are going to have to go to summer school.
And if you retake it, it doesn't count for the teacher or for the school district. So if you flawed the tests, the system has flawed the test. Why don't you have a correction that helps the school district and the teachers?
This is legislation being made by people who do not have kids that are actually in public schools. And this is the result we're seeing across the board. I'm not going to let you, though, get away with blaming the problems in Shelby County on our state legislature. The problem in Shelby County schools,
no, they're part of it.
Maybe 25, 30%. Majority of it rests right there with their own school board and the people they elect. Because
I worked in public education reform in Shelby County for 10 years. That's when we had the ASD and school takeovers there. And I think, Shelby County is having to do some serious soul searching, and we can't tie the state legislature to that at all.
I'm not saying all, but they had the ASD. Oh, well, our kids are failing, so let's create the ASD. Now, where is that? What progress did that make?
I will say this for the state of education in Tennessee, is national benchmarks came out about a month ago, and we underperformed the state of Mississippi. And, we typically say, thank God for Mississippi, because we're not last, and we underperform state Mississippi.
Take Shelby County, take Davidson County out, take those 3 counties, and our state looks pretty good. I'm going to have to leave it there,
because we are totally out of time. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next week on In Focus.